Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Another Fine Mess. I'm Roger Gray, along with
Mike Vance.
Indy. How are you, sir?
I am doing wonderfully. Thank you. And you?
Pretty well. Pretty well. Let's start statewide, shall we? I mean, there's so much to talk about, and unfortunately, so much of it is political. But we have a Senate primary race that is going hot and heavy right now between John Cornyn, the current senator. He was elected in '02, succeeding Phil Gramm, and Ken Paxton, the ethically challenged Attorney General of Texas, and they both made a little news this week.
Yes. And let me just start by saying that Cornyn, for a long time, had a reputation as a business-oriented, relatively fair Republican. He has destroyed every shred of that. Neither him nor Ken Paxton have an iota of ethics, nor should they have any dignity. I find them both to be equally despicable candidates at this point. And with Cornyn, I come from, I'll just say, my ex-wife used to work for him at the Attorney General's office and was thrilled when he took over there after the equally ethically challenged Dan Morales.
Dan Morales, yes.
So, like I said, he took a halfway decent reputation, even among Democrats, and has blown that all to hell.
Well, yeah, and I will say, I've interviewed Cornyn a few times, and I share your opinion. I'm not sure I'd put him on the same level as Paxton right now, but I mean, they're all just pandering to fare thee well. But the times I talk to him, as you say, a pretty classic Republican, very pro-business, could work across the aisle, which became increasingly unusual, and it just seemed to be a reasonable person, to be quite honest. Former Supreme Court Justice, former AG, Air Force veteran, Air Force officer. Yeah, by and large, pretty decent guy. And this race, with the Trump factor being so important, has brought out the worst in both, which wasn't a hard pull with Paxton, but I'm a little surprised at the level of pandering from Cornyn, and we're seeing it now.
I'm not surprised at all.
Tell them what we're talking about.
Well, Cornyn wants to rename a stretch of highway after the orange blob in the White House. Stretch of Texas highway for no reason whatsoever. And he's doing everything he can to kiss up to get an endorsement, because so far there has not been a White House endorsement in this Senate primary, which votes in a couple of weeks. So I'm sorry, Cornyn's a coward, and any goodwill that he has built up over decades, he has blasted off into the ether.
Well, I am. It happens in primaries. Let's be honest. Democrats go left, Republicans go right, and then they ideally go back to the. Excuse me. There we go.
Easy there.
I need room to gesture. Anyway, they ideally go back to the center in the general, which will be against whoever wins this. It'll be against Tallarico in the fall. And this stretch of highway, by the way, begins in Montana and goes 287? It goes all the way to Port Arthur, which is not a trip a lot of people make, to be quite honest. I've been to both places, and I would prefer Montana.
In either direction. There's not much in Port Arthur anymore, yeah. Montana's great. There's nothing in
Montana's
Port Arthur
wonderful.
any longer.
Nobody can afford it. The late Ted Turner owned half of it, but absolutely stunningly beautiful state. Port Arthur is not. But Port Arthur's a business town. That's not really fair. Port Arthur
lately.
exists.
It's kind of
it's
a little abandoned.
Anyway,
So
he wants to rename it. He wants to make it an interstate highway, rename it Highway 47, and it'll be known forevermore, he said, as the Trump Highway, which is, my gosh, could we?
Well,
Be,
he also in making that statement said, "Well, this is one of the best presidents we've ever had in American history," or something to that effect. Again,
yeah.
coward, pure D coward. Now, you told me about the latest of Paxton, and we should remind people Paxton has been up for years, and he keeps kicking the can down the road, including perhaps, allegedly, threatening various prosecutorial entities to move venues and to postpone trials during that time period. But he's been up on multiple felonies for almost I think the entire time he has served as Texas Attorney General. He is suing Act Blue, even though most of the allegations against those fundraising platforms were against the Republican one. But you
Act Blue is an organization. Act Blue is an organization that raises money for Democrats. Yeah, the latest is he is suing Netflix, who, to all appearances, will be the loser in the fight over who gets to buy Warner Brothers. He's suing Netflix for something that everybody online, every online platform does, and that is what we always refer to as the algorithm. When you log on to Netflix, for example, I assume you probably have it. You get the little, ring, and it'll ask you, who's watching. I usually click me because I pick out a lot of movies and so forth. Anyway, you choose the movie or the series you want to watch, okay? And Netflix keeps track of that. And that's why you get if you're really into Westerns, for example, they'll suggest a lot of Westerns for you. They're trying to read the taste of the customer. Now, that obviously also will involve advertising when you're watching something, unless you pay to make the ads go away. Either way, Netflix makes money. But that's how they make money. In the old days, when we were all watching the three networks, commercials is how they made money. That's still how they make money. So there's nothing surprising. We've added some computer wizardry to sort of tailor the commercials toward you, but that's about it. He is suing for that algorithm because it also involves kids. If your child is picking out movies they want to watch and TV shows they want to watch on Netflix, Netflix keeps track of that. They're not sending them porn or anything. I'm not sure what he's basing this suit on, but he's saying they're invading the privacy of children, minors. It just seems such a stretch.
I'll toss out an idea. The people that will probably get Warner Brothers, and that's not just the studio, but that's, as we've talked before, that's CNN and a world of other entities.
Yeah.
The group that will probably end up with that is a very right-wing group. Netflix is not. So it's the same intimidation, extortion that party has been using all along to make life difficult for anybody that they politically oppose.
Well, the party, certainly this administration, for example, it came out this week that back when Netflix and what we're talking about is Skydance, Paramount, Larry Ellison and his son David. David now runs CBS, and I understand Leslie Stahl may be the next to go over at CBS, by the way, but Ellison has reputedly promised the president that he would basically fire wholesale much of the anchor core over at CNN, which is a part of Warner Brothers now. And I don't know where I'm going to get my Aaron Burnett fix if that happens. But his son, Ellison, is a big contributor. The rumor is also, not rumor, but it has been reported that Netflix was asked to get, it's the other Rice. What is her first name?
Susan Rice.
Susan Rice. Susan Rice is on the board of Netflix. She's the former UN ambassador and security advisor to both Clinton and Obama. And that was reputedly a kind of under-the-table demand, get her off your board, which is, as you say, an implied threat. If you want this thing to go your way, here's what I want.
I'm sorry, that's not implied. And when I talk about Republicans, I'm talking about them today. We're not here to talk about the Gerald Ford administration. This party today has made that rule number one of their playbook. Sue people. The occupant of the White House right now has very openly, in the last week, talked about the acting attorney general, or whatever his current title is,
right,
kept him out of, this is a quote, kept me out of jail for years. That is a quote. Kept me out of jail for years. So it's a tacit admission that he should be in jail, for starters. But aside from that, the reason Todd Blanche has his job is because,
indeed.
Well, let me. No.
Okay.
The reason Todd Blanche has his job is because his predecessor, Bondi, was not doing enough to go after the enemies of the White House. I mean,
well, and her attempts were failing.
Verbatim.
And her attempts were failing. Witness the Comey prosecution, the going after Letitia James in New York, and Fani Willis down in Georgia. It wasn't working. Juries were saying no. Grand juries were saying no, thank you. So yeah, that's a problem, and he is so much of. There's so much to do. To be honest, the economy is in tough shape right now. It's a self-inflicted wound. We shot ourselves in the foot with tariffs, and now with this war. We're looking at 3.8% inflation at the last report. There's so much to take care of, and we're worrying about people we consider political enemies, people that gave him grief in an earlier life. And it seems like such a monumental. Look at, he posted 55 times night before last on
That's
his,
where I was about to go. Yeah,
on his social media, 55 times posts that were goofy AI renderings. We'll talk about AI. I know that was something you were interested in, but these goofy AI renderings about Obama and Biden and Pelosi, and a screed by Michael Flynn, who was convicted of working with the Russians during the 2016 campaign. He confessed. And he lied to the FBI.
He also,
anyway,
one of the things
Obama,
one of the things that he tweeted about was that his new AG was not doing enough to go after his political enemies. And that was in there 2 or 3 times. The guy is unhinged. He is not capable of cogent thought.
I know there's a lot of speculation about the president's mental state, and I understand that. I understand some of it is political, some of it is somewhat legitimate. I'm not going to pretend to be a psychologist. I know a lot of them. I've interviewed a lot of them. I'm not going to put myself in that position, but I do have to say, this is, I mean, what we're getting here is if we were both a little younger, and I'm going to blow the G rating now, this would be called shitposting. And this is what, frankly, kids in high school do to each other. and it's unbecoming. I just wrote a piece about the kind of the deterioration of presidential and press relations. Yes, they've been going downhill from the glory days of Ike and JFK. Vietnam was a lot of it. Watergate was a lot of it. The divide grew even greater under Reagan and so forth, and so on. But now we're at a point where insulting each other, sometimes childishly insulting each other, is the norm. That is political discourse now. And it's one thing to come from a high school kid, it's another thing to come from the Oval Office.
Yeah, you mentioned, I read the piece this morning, and my turn to do explanation of a reference.
Okay.
You're talking about the Texas Outlaw Writers that you
Yeah.
write for, which you can find Roger and Jim Moore up there, both excellent pieces that come out fairly often. So you were talking about in that article presidential press secretaries. And I was thinking about that this morning before we started recording. How much do they really matter? Because in the old days, and you come from a background in the press and going to these interviews
I
and
started in
having to go through
1970.
them. Yeah, so that's your background. But in the days that you're talking about, with JFK and LBJ and Nixon and on down the line, we had three, four television networks and the top newspapers plus services like AP and UPI.
Yeah.
And those are still the predecessor, the descendants of those organizations in some cases, and some others that are more international, are still the ones that go to those press conferences. But most people, I think, are not getting news from those sources necessarily, though they should be, because that's where legitimate reporting takes place. So, in a sense, how much does the presidential press secretary matter today versus what they did back then?
It's a good point. It's an excellent point because I don't know how many people are watching Carolyn Levitt's press conferences. I do. You do probably. But the average voter,
Try not to.
you're right. I don't know. Huh? I'm
I
sorry?
said I try not to.
I can
Yeah,
understand. I can understand. Part of my premise of this was, as far as a relationship with the press, and I can understand it. Every president, ask if you could resurrect LBJ and Jimmy Carter, ask them how well they were treated by the press. Ask Bill Clinton how well he was treated by the press. It's not just a one-sided thing, and as I wrote, I'm sure JFK went back to the Oval Office, swearing a blue streak about something that somebody had written about him. But you didn't see it in front of reporters. You didn't see that pettiness. You didn't see he kept the anger leashed. And it's, excuse me, I think the whole idea of responding to every question with an insult, number one, it's not going to improve the relationship, and it makes you look petty. If you're asked a
well,
question
he is petty.
oh, okay, yeah,
He
but
is petty.
if you're asked a question and your first response is, "Who are you with?" "Oh, they're awful." "Oh, you're terrible. You're a lousy reporter." That's that is just going to sour the relationship even more. I mean, that's just simple
Yep.
human nature.
But Roger, he is petty. That has been the way he always has been. But it goes beyond that. It goes beyond insulting the organizations. He called a reporter for asking a question the other day a bitch. Called her a bitch. Now,
Now, to be fair, he said
to be fair, she is. What?
he mouthed it. He mouthed it. He didn't say it out loud.
Look, the guy, take the press secretaries out of the equation. The guy
Yeah.
with the modern media landscape is speaking more to the American people, which makes it even more necessary that he show what used to be called the dignity of office. And we can go back and we can do the archaeology on this and go back to Lee Atwater and the kind of people, Roger Ailes, the people that created this environment of insult and attack. But it has got to be reined in. There are friends of mine that I know to be good people who have other friends that go on about wanting Democrats dead on
Yeah.
social media. And that kind of thing has got to stop. That has got to be reined in. And it's coming from the Oval Office, it is coming from the top.
To be honest, Mike, though, there are Democrats that have expressed the same sentiments about Donald Trump. They can't. We will be celebrating, when we get that news.
That's one person.
I,
I'm talking about, that's not what I'm saying. I am talking
oh,
about
okay.
not
All
specific
members.
Democrats. He wants all Democrats dead. I've seen people write that. Now, I have
Well,
not seen a Democrat say they want all Republicans dead.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I have seen more of the one side than the other, certainly. Anyway, this is unbecoming of the office, and I realize that is a massive understatement. I understand that, but it's as you say, everybody needs to tone it down. And I'm not talking about the stuff that comes that it comes after the assassination attempts for political partisan purposes. They say, well, you guys need to tone it down. That's what's created. That's not what I'm talking about. I think the dialogue overall, the conversation overall, has become so childish.
So this guy, along with Musk and Cook and who knows what other multi-billionaires, is now in China and negotiating on behalf of our nation. Take your pick on which one is the most powerful guy in the world. I'm not going with ours. I'll be honest with you. But he's over there doing things that you would think are relatively important and coming at it from a position of weakness right now because he is mired in a war that, by I think all indications other than his own, we are not winning.
Well, and there's a lot of new information that has come out that Hegseth is livid about, as you might expect. We have, and we've talked about this. We have depleted our weapon stores, very expensive weapon stores, tremendously, to the point that we're having to rob Peter to pay Paul. Ship weapons from the Pacific region, where they may be needed, depending on how this meeting goes, somewhere down the road. And it's going to take a long time to replenish them because they're very expensive and time-consuming to produce. And the other is we have not destroyed the Iranian military and Iranian defenses to the extent that has been claimed. Not apparently even close. So, yeah, this is, MacArthur warned JFK, don't get involved in a land war in Asia. I'm sure there were caveats like that presented to other presidents before, involving a war in the Middle East, another conflict there. We saw how well those went, and yet here we are again, claiming it looks like it should be easy, and it never really is. And that's what's kind
Well,
of sad
I
about
don't
this.
know. I'm sorry, but I don't know who thought it looked like it should be easy, other than the idiots that are currently in charge and who fired all the experts.
Yeah, but
That's
Mike,
the
we're
pattern
we're a
we've seen.
superpower. The reason it looks easy to somebody who is not well versed, we're a superpower. We have all the toys. They're a medium to small Middle Eastern country with a lot of oil money,
They're
yeah,
not, no,
but
no, no. They're
outdated
not
equipment.
small. They're not
What?
small. It's an enormous country.
Indeed, in comparison, though, to the U.S. military, in what was for years a bipolar world between us and the Russians. We were the top dog, and the top dog ought to win easily, but we haven't.
But you said the magic words. Anybody who is informed. They fired all of the people who were informed. That is one of
Yeah.
the first things they did when they came in, was get rid of the traditional intelligence groups that had been formed and operated over decades in the Pentagon, in the National Security Organization overall, in the CIA. So they got rid of the experts. And you need those people. Those are people that know what they're talking about. And it's now the Keystone Cops up there, which is a reference I'm not going to go back and explain. But I mean, come on. You got to have the people that know what they're talking about, because they have nobody decent giving them advice. And the guy in charge doesn't want to hear that advice anyway.
Yeah.
He's the one that's tweeting 55 times within a 3-hour period in the middle of the night.
Which is, I'm sorry, that's insane. I mean, I stay online a lot because of what we do, but holy smokes! Plus, if you do that all night, you're going to fall asleep in meetings, which we're
Gee, I
hoping is
wonder
not
who
going
does
to
that.
happen in China. Well, it
So
happened again.
What do you
ahead.
expect to happen in China?
What do I expect? I think Xi's going to play tough. I'm sorry. I know he's a big. They are big clients, big customers of Iranian oil, and he will probably say nice things about the meeting, but I'm sure he's telling Trump, wrap it up. You need to wrap it up. We need oil, and your economy is heading down the porcelain facility.
China is the number one recipient of Iranian oil. They also are the number one manufacturer and user of electric vehicles. They have become, I mean, you remember from not that long ago, 20 years ago, there were pictures of all the smog in Beijing and other
Oh, yeah.
Chinese cities. Now, they are the largest user of renewables on the planet and have gone all in on that. So their
And
dependence,
we are backing away.
yes, and their dependence on Iranian oil is, yes, it's large. They also have the largest oil supply, surplus supply, sitting around right now, bigger than the United States does. That I read this morning can support their oil needs for 4 months, maybe longer. But they both need this wrapped up. They
Yep.
both need the Strait of Hormuz open. There are some common grounds to be reached there, I think, but
Yeah.
we are not negotiating from a position of strength.
No, we're not, and that's the saddest part of this to me, quite frankly. The U.S. economy at the beginning of 2025, and Biden did okay, but the U.S. economy in the post-pandemic world was the ideal. Everybody was looking to us. Our interest rate, our inflation rate, was falling. Our inflation was down to 2.4% right before
2.3.
the November election.
2.3, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just above what the Fed wants, and the Fed had planned to make some interest rate cuts. And that's not going to happen now. Not with inflation where it is. People, what hit us last night? We were Karen and I were watching one of the news stories, and coffee has gone up 100%. Now that's partially tariffs. That's partially diesel prices because everything is shipped on a truck. Tomatoes walk through the grocery store. So, yeah, we've got issues to deal with here. And we're spending a lot of time talking about the reflecting pool in Washington.
Look, we talked about just a few minutes ago insulting everybody, the pettiness that is just in everything that comes out of this administration, and people like Ken Paxton. But when you talk about that on an international scale,
Yeah.
insulting people and name calling the people that have been your historic allies comes back to bite you in the ass. And that is what has happened repeatedly. That is why we are in such a position of weakness going to China, and ignore all the bluster that he thinks, is saying, "Oh, I'll get everything we want." No, he's not in a position of strength to do that. You're seeing the same thing in the war right now. You pissed off all the allies. So, not that that might have made much of a difference to begin with, but it sure isn't helping.
Well, and you've got to take yourself out of the equation to some extent. I know that's well nigh impossible with this administration, with the president. The German chancellor basically tossed out the idea that this whole idea of war with Iran was a bad idea. It was a mistake. And the response is, we're pulling troops out of Germany. That's our trip line. That's our NATO front line, Germany. They've been a good ally, given the history. And I love the fact, Mike, that the German chancellor is Fred Merz. But at any rate, to say, well, you said something bad about me, I'm pulling troops out of Germany. That's a strategic decision based on a personal perceived insult. For goodness sakes, this is a petty schoolyard fight between the heads of two powerful economies.
And it's a petty schoolyard fight without understanding what you're even fighting about. As you pointed out, the troops in Germany are not there to protect Germans.
Germany,
They're there to protect our interests.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just the Nelson Muntz on the Simpsons, the bully there, is infinitely smarter than the bully we have occupying the White House.
Okay, had to get it in. It's interesting. I mentioned the reflecting pool, and something. There was an entire little press conference held there. They drove cars onto the reflecting pool to hold a press conference about the refurbishment of. Trying not to knock my mic over again. The refurbishment of the reflecting pool. This is. It suddenly occurred to me last night, Mike. Have you ever heard any president talk about something as mundane as the reflecting pool on the National Mall? It is, I double checked because I was certain I had heard this. The National Park Service takes care of all the monuments on the mall. Okay, they they power wash the granite and the marble on the Jefferson and Lincoln and the Washington monuments. They take care of the museums. They maintenance on the reflecting pool every year. Usually in late winter, they drain it, clean it, haul out the junk that gathers because it's out there in the open. Detritus, leaves, animals, etc. Repair anything they find under there, and then refill it. It's done once a year. It's maintenance. It's part of the budget. Nobody thinks a thing about it. I doubt that Biden, either Bush, Clinton, anybody ever sat down and thought, wow, I wonder if we're taking care of the reflecting pool.
Well,
It's part of the deal.
Let's keep in mind the guy that he has now paid 6-7 times what was initially supposed to be the needless job to begin with. The guy was doing his pools. He's a pool guy that he hired to do this. But let's not lose sight of the most important thing here. That reflecting pool was designed to, I don't know, reflect the
reflect.
monuments that
Yeah.
are at both ends, the reason that it is dark on the bottom and not blue is because that's what creates that reflection. It makes it look deeper. They are now going to make it look like some cheap ass fountain that you find in the middle of the mall. And I
Yeah, it's
don't
going to look
mean
like
the National Mall. I'm talking about, Northwest Mall.
yeah.
So it's once again, there is no understanding, and there is nobody with spine, a sinew of cojones to step up
Yeah.
and go, I'm you're no, this is not what we need to be doing. This is a mistake. It's there, it's dark for a reason. So
Yeah. That no, that is the case, and so much is being made of these relatively petty things. Now, the ballroom thing is not, and we discussed that last week. We already have a ballroom that the government built that is used for government functions and private functions. We already have one. You don't need to do this, but we're hell bent on doing it anyway. Before we run out of time, Mike, you want to talk a little bit about the World Cup. It's coming up, and obviously, all that is going on is affecting a lot of our relationships with other countries who will be participating in the World Cup. It's going to be a big effing deal, and it's going to be an expensive deal, and it's going to bring money here. But now it's getting complicated.
it yeah, it's going to bring money to FIFA. It's not there. Most of the cities are having a real problem because FIFA is now taking more and more of the money. They're changing the deal as we go along. So the cities are going to lose money by hosting, is the way it stands right now. And
Oh, okay.
so that's a major problem for all of these cities that thought, well, we're bidding on this. Great, we're going to be a World Cup city. We're going to have all these tourists coming in. Well, FIFA is now making the city pay for way more than what was the initial plan. However, the World Cup is hosted by primarily the United States, but also Canada and Mexico. So, for once in the World Cup, we are at a position of strength compared to the Iranians, who have qualified for the World Cup. What's interesting is that Iran has issued a list of demands. So, and I am not
Really?
making that up. That is the actual term. They have issued a list of demands if if we want them to come to the World Cup. Now, in the department of not understanding who has the upper hand in this situation, I think that goes really high on the list. One of the things that they are demanding is that people that are part of the Republican Guard, the Islamic Republican Guard or Revolutionary Guard, that they be allowed in. Now, that organization is on the terrorist list in both the United
Yeah.
States and Canada. So that's not just us, that's Canada as well.
Right.
And some of the Iranian officials that are not the players, but the officials who oversee the team, belong to the Revolutionary Guard. So they're demanding that they be let in. And I think that we can all predict where that one's going to end up.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. I mean, rightfully so. They're a terrorist organization for a good reason. And the American government and the Canadian government are just going to go, no, sorry,
No.
no. And y'all don't want to come? That's okay, because we got about 500 other countries, exaggeration, but that have teams that almost qualified that would love to come take your spot, even at the last minute.
And by the way, I have to wonder how attendance is going to be. I heard the other day that a ticket for the first round, it's like the first round of the division playoffs in the NFL, is more expensive than the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that is correct.
So
I was, you know, World Cup in the United States. I really wanted to go. I wanted to be able to go to a World Cup game, and from where we live, it is a reasonable trip to go to Houston, to go to Dallas, to go to Monterrey. all three of those are fairly easy to get to and not very far. So I looked into all of them. Monterey is cheaper than Houston or Dallas, but even there is a game that I want to say is like Saudi Arabia and Cape Verde that's in Houston
Okay.
that I looked at. And it's by far the cheapest one because Germany and the Netherlands and Portugal are all playing there.
Oh, yeah.
But the Saudis and Cape Verde still was going to run me for nosebleed seats $800 or something like that.
Holy cow.
And
Okay.
you know, it's greed, and FIFA is really
Sure.
trying to outgreed everybody else on the planet right now with this.
And you wouldn't have thought that was possible considering the NFL and MLB and all the rest of it, but it looks like they're gonna do it.
Well, the NFL takes a lot of grief, but they by and large are really really smart business folks. I I can only think that FIFA was thinking, oh, we're coming to the U.S. and Canada with these great economies, so we can price gouge as much as we want to, and they certainly have outdone themselves.
Indeed. And at that point, we're going to need to wrap it up. There's so much to talk about. There's a new Trump Tower going up in the Eastern European state of Georgia, which is very pro-Moscow, which, gosh, that brings up lots of questions, but we'll have to ask them next time.
Well,
Mike
I do
Vance.
have a weird. No, I got a
Oh,
weird
you have
history fact.
Go
for you.
ahead. Yeah, a weird historical fact.
So this is, I told you I wanted to make this a regular thing, and this is a little more recent historical fact. But you know the song from the Muppets, the ma-na-na-na, ma-na-ma-na,
Yeah.
da-da-da-da-da. Yep.
Right.
So that you hear over and over. Do you know where that song came from?
No.
It came from a softcore Italian movie about Swedish love.
Well,
So in the 1960s, there was a movie, a documentary produced in Italy called Sweden, Heaven or Hell. And it
Yeah.
was so over the top. And apparently the focus of the documentary was to say that this free love culture that had happened in Sweden with all the blonde women romping around was bad. But yet, to demonstrate that, they showed a lot of blonde women romping around. And there
Yeah.
is a scene in the movie of Swedish women wearing nothing but towels, all laughing and wiggling around in a sauna. And the music is mana mana do 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 do, mana mana do 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 do. So apparently Jim Henson and Frank Oz and the other people at Sesame Street saw this and lifted that music for the Muppets. So,
which confirms all of our suspicions about Piggy, Miss Piggy, and Kermit. So,
yep. So you are now
I think you're
informed. And thank you very much. You will never get that song out of your head for the rest of your day.
I know. Thank you so much. It's an earworm. Mike, thank you so much, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you for doing that to all of us. And we appreciate you being here. Thank you, guys. And we will see you next time for
Yes, sir.
another fine mess.